Welcome to the Global Citizen Life podcast. Today on the show, we have Freeman Fung. He is an inspirational speaker, best-selling author, and certified life coach who has advocated new global citizenship at TEDx, Mindvalley, World Tourism Forums, and more. Throughout his platform, Travel to Transform, he empowers individuals to unlock both inner and outer freedom and to embark on meaningful travels. Originally from Hong Kong, Freeman left home solo at 19 to live in Romania for a global village project. What began as an escape from a struggling, mundane life evolved into a transformative journey where he backpacked, studied, traveled, worked, and experienced life in over 35 countries for more than a decade. He's now based in Sydney, Australia, and Freeman is on a mission to awaken more world citizens and to make our world a better place through personal transformation. So, welcome to the show, Freeman. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Sally. Thanks for having me today. I'm so excited. And hello, everybody.
So, let's start with traveling, just initially traveling solo at 19 and going to Romania. What made you choose Romania?
Yeah, that's always an interesting question when I get asked that. So just a bit of background for everyone. I'm born and raised in Hong Kong, and in the first 19 years of my life, right, I was living in a highly competitive environment. And for those who may be in Hong Kong, it's 24/7, energetic. It's a very financially driven and also materialistic for the youngest version of me. So I never really did well in school, and I felt really suffocated in that educational system as well. The ancient way of creating the next dragon for the family per se. So since I grew up in Hong Kong, I never really quite feel I fit in, quite not quite fit in into my own culture. Or I should say, quite not quite fit in how the society is measuring my own success. So when I was 19 years old, where I got to university, I was so depressed and feeling unfulfilled, feeling unhappy deep down, even though, on the outside, I may be getting a successful degree and, looking happy with my friends. But, deep down, I knew something was missing. So I got the opportunity through my university that I go through a cultural exchange through ISAC. And you may possibly know the organization. And for those who may not know, it's a international youth platform which allows a student to go on exchange abroad, overseas. So I got an opportunity to go to Romania for a global village project. And to be honest, to answer your question, back in the day, I was just so naive that I thought Europe is Europe, and I thought Romania is part of Europe. And after I go to Romania, I can tell people, "Hey, I've been to Europe." And it was a really naive version of me, back in the day. And obviously now I know, wow, like Eastern Europe and Central Europe and Western Europe and Northern Europe, I've explored so much and get to know the different culture within the European unions or even outside European unions. And, it's so fascinating, get to get outside my own comfort zone, to go outside my own cultural bubble to learn about the world. So at that time, I got the opportunity to go through this cultural exchange, and it was a really it changed the whole trajectory of my life. That trip, the solo trip, my first ever solo trip when I was 19. Even though, when I left home, I was just feeling, "Ah, I have nothing to lose. I may as well do something crazy about it, right? About my life." And I got into this project where I was living with 40 other internationals from 16 different countries.
Wow.
And that was a turning point where, wow, I start to realize the power of diversity, right? And also the power of authenticity. Because when I was surrounded by this diversity, I realized we're not here to be the same as anyone else. We're actually here to walk on our own path, right? And I start to really get outside my own bubble and realizing, the societal way asking me to get the degree, to get a job, to get a promotion, get more money, get a house, get a bigger house, get a spouse. And that trajectory doesn't really work for me anymore. And that gave me a permission. That solo trip gave me the permission to shift my mindset to embody what I call, the global citizen mindset now, that I really get to make my own choice, to make my own way of living, to really explore the world in a way that works for me, works with my own personal circumstances, work for my own financial blueprint, right? To work with my personal preferences. And that really started off the trajectory of my life because afterwards, as you mentioned on my introduction, that I got to travel around the world and explore and live in over 35 different countries, right? And I got to find a job that works for me, that I was working for a multinational company as well. And I got to work in the UK. I relocated to the UK, back in London where I studied my master's as well, after my solo trip in Romania. And I got to relocate to Singapore and now relocate to Sydney, Australia as well. So it has been spanning across a decade fascinating journey about finding who I am, finding my true self through traveling, and also finding, what I can understand better about the world, about the worldview, about different cultures. And that's the reason why I'm so passionate about, this word global citizenship, as you are as well, and also your audience, because eventually I'm here to reimagining this definition as well, because I realize global citizen is not those people who are, fighting at the forefront for global justice. They are not people who are working in developing countries and helping on poverty or global crisis, right? It's actually simply a mindset. It's an identity. When we understand we are citizens of the world, no matter where we are born, no matter what our skin color is, our eye color, our hair color, we're simply, citizen of the world one way or another. And embodying this global mindset just help unlocks my life so much in this 10 years and still counting, right? That it unlocks things that have never I would be able to imagine, going to places I've never be thought I would be visiting, having meaningful connections with more other global citizens from all around the world as well, and really building, a passion that I'm just enjoying life so much, and, sharing this inspiration with more people as well.
Yeah, and I think there's a few things I definitely want to unpack with what you've just said, but I think one of it is too is there's a lot of people who may have a common misconception when they hear the word global citizen. Like my definition of global citizen is not nobody needs passports to travel and everybody can just go everywhere and do everything. It's we are all part of the globe and it's being open to meeting different people, experiencing different cultures, learning different languages, watching different traditions and participating in those things. And so therefore we're really more open-minded. And part of travel is why do people do the things they do? Why do they think the way they think? Why do they have the traditions and history? And traditions could even just be food traditions, right? Like
Mm,
there's so much diversity in the world, and every country has got so many interesting things, so many good people. But with a caveat with that too, every country also has bad people and things that aren't great. And it's also being knowledgeable and knowing that, I'm not just seeing the world with rose-colored glasses and everything's rainbows and butterflies, but it's leaning into that type of thing, but being aware of everything and how, there isn't just a one size fits all for anyone. I had a similar an experience. Mine was I was in high school, and for some reason, one day I was at school and I remember saying to my friends, I think I've been switched at birth. And they were like, What?
mm,
Your parents aren't your parents? And I started to laugh a little bit. And I said, No, not literally, but I have this feeling like I'm not meant to live in Canada for my entire life. And that was strange. It was a strange feeling for them. And of course, and it was very strange for them. They're thinking, like, what do you mean you're Canadian? You're born here. What do you mean you're not meant to live here? Right. And it just wasn't
mhm,
something that, people they would move abroad, but it was only because their work made them do it or for, volunteer kind of stuff. And it wasn't just as modern and popular as it is now. So just to kind of jump back a little bit, When you did your exchange at 19 and you decided you wanted to do more stuff abroad and travel and move, how did your parents react to that? Because as you said, your culture typically was quite, you go to school, you get a good job to get the better job, and it's more kind of that money materialistic. And and as far as that I've talked to people, not many people leave home or the home country because part of the tradition is you have to be there to help take care of your family.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I'm quite fortunate because my parents, they are pretty open-minded. Obviously, there's always challenge for every individual, when they go abroad because, we have been very rooted with our family, right? Especially in a very collective cultures, if you are Asians or Southeast Asians, they have been really, really, rooted into how you show up for your family, how you show up in your own space, in your culture, in your city, or in your society, right? And I think that after Romania, that was a really interesting shift because I become a different person.
Mm.
And the way I look at the world, because before that trip, honestly, I have been a tourist. I have traveled to different places and going on travel tours but it's so different from getting yourself out of your own bubble and going outside the comfort zone to try something different because that really shapes you into a different person. It shifts an identity. And that's why I'm now a mindset coach as well. And that's why I'm fascinating with this word because if there's one thing that can change a person's life, the biggest needle that you can move is your mindset. Right. And without going too far into that yet, when I was, when after that trip to Romania, when I went back home to Hong Kong, like literally my friends and family, they realized something is different in me. And they realized I was suddenly having this spark in me, rather than being so cynic, I was back in the days, I was in a metal band as well. I was pretty rebellious because I just hate society. It's like, why are you all this doing this wrong thing to me? I want my freedom, but I don't know how, right? And when I came back, I have a different perspective. I realized, wow, the world is so much bigger than I thought. There's so much I have yet to learn, and there's so much about myself I have yet to explore as well. And after that, like I immediately know like there's something out there more for me to learn. So when I went back to Hong Kong, I was studying my bachelor degrees in hotel and tourism management back then. And after Romania, I already immediately applied for another academic exchange to the UK to study in Oxford. And that's the first time, ever first time I study in the UK. And, I'm very grateful, my parents see, okay, like he grew up now, he finally talks like an adult rather than an emo metal band guy, who's just hating the societies. And, they see something in it. So they kind of supportive with me to go on another half a year exchange in the UK, and very grateful that I got a bit of scholarship from my school to do that as well because I think there's I resonate so much with what you said, Sally. It's about we finding what works for us when we are creating this global citizen life, right? Because everyone has a different circumstances. What worked for me doesn't mean it works for you. However, there is a better awareness, a better conscious awareness that we can cultivate, right? And for me, at that time, I didn't even have a job. I was a broke student. But the most closest way I can get to go outside my comfort zone again, to go abroad, is to study. And again, I'm grateful to get a scholarship. And also at the same time, I know I can do more backpacking when I'm studying in the UK as well, because that's a gateway to Europe. And there are, so much budget airline and stuff that I was aware back then, right, to make this trip happen. So yeah, so that was the other turning point that my parents, they start to see, okay, there's something in this, right? And to fast forward even a little bit, after UK, obviously I am another different person again, right? And I went back to Hong Kong for my final year for my bachelor study, and I just told my parents, my friends that I learned so much, and I become so much clear about my life work. I realized I love freedom. I love traveling, and I want to have more, right, in my life path. So rather than stuck in a cubicle in, just an office job that has no variety, working in, what Hong Kong people would blend as the top four, career, which including, being a doctor, as we always joke about, right? Or being an accountant or, the big four, occupation we talk about, rather than getting stuck in that, I really want to travel, That's it. I don't
Mm.
know how, I don't know what, but I know my why. Right. And that's the most important part because that's a spark in me that I know I want to explore more. So after my final year in Hong Kong, I knew I wanted to pursue, further. I want to study a master's degree, back in the UK because I was falling in love with London back then, and also love so much to explore in Europe. So, that kind of set
Mm.
up, another trajectory to go back to the UK. Went back to the UK back then, and I knew that time, I was just so having this, what I call the travel inspiration now, which is like another word for travel inspiration to keep your spark going so that, you just don't go back to your home country to fall back to the same person you were before, right? But to become a new person that you have literally integrate a new identity, right? You have integrate a different part of the passion you have find out, right? You have integrate a different skill set and mastery of how you're navigating cultural gaps in the world. And by integrating all this, I realized, I really, really want to have a career that, is international. I have tried internship, I've worked in part-time before, I just don't want to stuck in a job back in Hong Kong that is just work for a local company. It wouldn't work for me. So when I was studying my master's in the UK, I knew I really want to find a career to create an international career. And I still remember all the challenges, I faced. I still remember all the obstacles because I was just a fresh graduate, right? And everyone told me, yeah, there's no way people are gonna sponsor your work visa, right? I just felt defeated, most of the time. Even I went through interviews that, some international company they would say, yeah, like Freeman, we love you. We love what you have to offer. We love your energy. We love, your international experience. But at this time, we just can't sponsor you. It's too difficult, to get a work visa for you at this stage for a junior position. And I still remember I got defeated again and again. But this spark, this trouble inspiration in me just kept me going because I know there would be one company who values my international insights, who value this diversity, would hire me no matter how challenging it might look with this legal requirement. And I still remember, at that university I was studying in Queen Mary University of London. And every week, that's just, other than going drunk and going to student parties all the time, or going travel backpacking, that's one appointment I never miss. Is to meet this career advisor at my school who helped me on interview, who helped me to craft my CV to make it more, really cater to what I'm looking for. And job after job after job, and then I finally got two offers. I still remember, what a journey, when I look back as well, and what I'm sharing with the audience, because I just see so many people feel defeated, feeling, yeah, that's not for me. I'm just meant to be living a local life. I just meant to climb the ladder as everyone. No, you're not. If you feel there's something different in you, that you feel like you want to explore the world, if you value freedom, if you value purpose as well, like there is a better way to create this global life path for yourself. So back to my story, back in that, place, I'm very grateful, I got two offers, at the end, and I choose to work for the multinational company, I mentioned, right, in the tourism industry, where I got to, then in the next 8 years, I got to travel and relocate with this company as well in different countries and explore the world as I really wanted to. So yeah, that's kind of like a story what happened after Romania, and also, how my parents see me transform into a different person and how I start
Mhm.
creating a global life of my own as well.
Well, I mean, everybody has challenges, right? Like as you know, I mean, it was challenges for you to have the lifestyle that you have, but you've also, I think what a lot of people think right now is, well, if I want that freedom and if I want to travel, I have to work for myself. I have to be self-employed. I have to have my own company. I have to do all these things. And
Mm,
that's not necessarily true. Like there are multinational companies that people can work for, and you do have that security of having the job. And yes, you may go 1 or 2 years to one country, another few years to another. And that's a great way because when people sometimes think about kind of that digital nomad lifestyle of a few months here, a few months there, because if you don't have a residency to stay, you can
mm,
only stay a few months. Some places 1 month, some places 3 months, some maybe 6 months, depending upon what passport you hold. And I'll be honest, like that traveling gets old really quick. Like in theory, you're
Mm.
like, oh, I just go here, I go there. But after a while, it does get old. So it is good to have that security. And if somebody wants to be, as you were talking earlier about like the big four, a doctor or an accountant, you can still, there's Doctors Without Borders, right? Where they're still traveling. You could be part of that. If you're an accountant, you could work for a multinational company, or maybe in that case, you can be your own and have your own company and work kind of freelance. So there's always ways. And I like how you said that, you took advantage of all the opportunities that you had with that career counselor. You went to one, they didn't hire you, they said good things. I'm sure you talked about, what worked, what didn't work, maybe to rephrase things, and having that coach counselor to help along the way, got you to that job that you wanted, those two offers that you ended up getting, and you just didn't quit. You didn't listen to everybody else because you knew. The way that I always think it is, everything's a numbers game. When there's a will, there's a way. May not be easy, may not be quick, may not be cheap, but there
Mm.
eventually there's a way. And everything kind of is a numbers game. If you keep improving and you keep doing things just a little bit better each time, eventually the right person, the right company, the right client, the right whatever it might be will happen, and people will get what they want.
So beautifully said, Sally. And I think to tie up what you just shared, there's such a powerful mindset shifts I really want to offer the audience here is that travel is not a reward for working, right? It's a
Mhm.
gateway to extraordinary living. So let me say that again. Travel is not a reward for working. It's a gateway to extraordinary living. And I think this mindset shift is so key if you truly want to create a global life for yourself. Because just like what you said, the digital nomad thing, it is something very, shiny on Instagram.
Mhm.
And this is what I also call, the shiny result syndrome as well. Everyone is chasing for that. Wow, I love that. I want to be at the beach. I want to be at this beautiful waterfall, epic drone shots, in Bali, beautiful beach and everything. Like, of course, we want that. But it doesn't mean that's exactly compatible with what you're seeking, right? And
Right.
in fact, like in my whole journey, like as you mentioned in my intro as well, I have a life journey of, different way of traveling, right? And I have a different way of relocating throughout different stages of my life. And it's about the clarity, understanding I'm not just booking for a trip as a tourist anymore, going off a one-off trip here and there, because I almost see it like I earn certain money and then I go on a trip, right? That's a reward. But travel is so much more than that. For me, travel is the ultimate self-development tool. It's a modern way of enlightenment, right? It's a fast track to create your global success, literally, because you are transcending all your local problem, right? This is what I always teach, especially when I'm on stage as well. A lot of people they feel they are stuck in life, right? And most of the time they are trying to solve. And the reason for that is because, when we have a problem, we solve it with a solution. But the thing is, with our traditional educational system, right, with our friends and families around us, the last generation, what we have been taught is using a local solution to solve a local problem, right? But here's the thing, the world is already globalized, right?
Yes.
We are already living in the modern world. So what we are trying, we have been doing, and why we feel stuck in life is because we are trying to use a local solution to solve a global problem, right? And by a global problem, I'm not referring to, the macro scale of things like poverty or energy crisis. Yes, those play a part as well. But I'm
Mhm.
saying you can use you can look at the global problem at a personal level as well, right? And what that means is you can look at your health, your relationship, your career, your financial blueprint, right? Your social connections at a global scale as well. And when we get to learn to use a global solution to solve the global problem for our own personal circumstances, now we are fast tracking the success in our life. And that's why, I call this the travel mastery as well, because the more consciously aware we can become, that travel is truly a gateway to extraordinary living, right? As long as we find our roadmap, as long as we find the tool, the practical strategies, and the way that can, fulfill this deeper meaning that sit inside us, then we are taking our life to a whole different level, right?
Absolutely. And one key point to mention though is as you're saying travel, there is such a major difference between going on vacation for 1 to 3 weeks, even if you're in the same place, to actually living somewhere and being there and becoming part of the community and making friends and really kind of absorbing the lifestyle as opposed to just you travel, it's great, it's fine. You meet some people, but you know you're leaving in a few weeks. And it's just not even close to being the same as to immersing yourself in a culture and living somewhere as it is
Mm,
just going on vacation. Because I've said to many people, going on vacation's great, love it. Doesn't matter where I go. Because somebody's like, have you been to anywhere you don't like? And I said, no, because even if it's not one of my favorite places, I was there for a few weeks or something. I knew I was leaving. So things didn't bother me very much because I wasn't living there. But when all of a sudden
mm,
you live somewhere, the things that didn't bother me when I was on vacation would start to eventually bother me because I'm living there. And it's kind of that, it is a mindset and it is a shift, but it is very different. Um, for when people say, I've traveled to many places and it's good, but I think living somewhere though is also very different than traveling because we just don't get that depth of the culture as we do when we're just traveling. And usually then we're with a bunch of other tourists just traveling as well and not really connecting with local people.
mm. Absolutely. And this is what I call, in my travel to transform community, right? Like this is what I always say, there's a huge difference between traveling as a tourist versus traveling as a global citizen, right? These are two very different, distinct way of lifestyle, right? And also, back in my days, right, as on my own travel journey, right? Like it was a time where with the first time when I went to Romania, it was for summer, right? And then I realized there's so much to explore and I crave for it. So I went for another academic exchange overseas, which is half a year, right? And then I went back to Hong Kong. I realized I want more as well. And then I went to study a master's degree for another year, right? And then I realized, I want to have a career that allows me to travel more as well. Then I start an international journey. But sometime I was moved back to Hong Kong to base there as well in the regional office. And and the reason I share this with with the audience who is listening is that that if there's a will, there is a way, right? And understanding what really takes you, right, through traveling, that is the key to unlock the next level of personal growth for yourself. Because what the problem with society is that we are only taught to be a tourist, and tourism and travel, they are almost tied to being a tourist, and that's it. And I totally get it. I used to work in the tourism industry as a marketing professional, so I know how good we are when it comes to educating, quote unquote educating with all the advertising and showing you all the amazing destination, the blue sky, the beautiful mountains, the amazing colorful houses in Italy or whatever, the places you're looking at, the blue rooftops with the amazing ocean of Greece and the food, and like we definitely know what takes to the human desires, right? But
Mhm.
it only gets how far you get if we are only focusing on this bit of traveling, because it is traveling as a tourist. So I think to help the audience to understand, okay, that sounds great, like I want to be more, right? Because I think most people who are listening to your Global Citizen Live podcast, they kind of knew, right? So but the question is then how, right? People ask, okay, yeah, I want that, I want more, but how, right? What are the steps? Like, so this is the first thing what I normally share with people is to recognize, what I call there are 4 stages of travelers, right? So the first stage is where people travel as tourists, and we can break it down, step by step, so that we can help the audience to recognize where they are right now and what would be the next step they can take, right, to get to where they want, one step further, right? So the first level is what we call as a tourist, right? And traveling is merely an escape for these people, and we have explained it a little bit, in the last few minutes about how people utilize it, right? And it's also important to recognize, from a personal growth perspective, right? Because travel is also intertwined with personal growth, right? It's
Hmm.
intertwined with personal transformation, right? It's a journey of self-awareness and also building new worldview about the world, right? So from a personal growth perspective, tourists are people who are mostly reactive. And reactive is like people F the government, like screw this, like why they don't approve my visa, why is it taking so long, why they cancel my flight, right? It's like the responsibility just delegated to someone else, right? Like I'm a victim here, right? So to go to the next level, right? This is where we go from tourist to becoming a explorer. So an
Hmm.
explorer are people who start using travel as a discovery process, right? And this is also where, when people, in terms of personal growth, the explorer, they become willful, right? It's just like what you touched on. When there is a will, there is a way, right? Now I start recognizing I have ownership to create my own life path as well, right? I have ownership to create my own freedom. So when explorers start, discovering the world, may that be solo traveling, may that be, no matter how you travel, you start understanding the world and yourself better, right? And then so this is the second level of people, when it comes to the different stages. And the third stages is what I call being an adventurer. So you go from an explorer to becoming an adventurer. And here is where your travel become impactful as well. So other than discovery, other than learning, you start also creating impacts that aligns with your own value as well. You start creating impact into the places that you're traveling. You start leaving a positive blueprint. You start reacting with the locals or the people or other travelers there in your own authentic way, right? And from a personal growth perspective, an adventure is where people they upgrade from being willful to becoming intellectual as well, right? Because life is not just about working hard, right? It's about working smart. So becoming intellectual means you are able to start developing new system of living and start creating a new mode of reality, right? It's very similar to what I believe what you're helping people in global citizen life as well, right? You help people developing a new system for their career or maybe even tax system, right? The
Hmm.
legal
That's right.
system behind, right? What are the countries you can now analyze, that fits best with you, right? There's an intellectual framework to do that, right? So
Hmm.
becoming an adventurer means you start really creating an impact through your travel, through creating your global life. It's not just about yourself anymore. You start having creating transformation and changes in the world, in the industry, right? In what you are passionate about. Yeah. So this is the first stages of being a traveler. And then the last stages, can you guess what the last stage is? Drum roll. I think everybody guessed it already. The last stage is being a global citizen,
Yeah,
right?
that's right. You're it. You're it. You made it.
You made it. You made it to the stages of being a global citizen. And what that means is, right, we have addressed a lot of different, stereotype, the old stereotype in this interview as well. But what truly mean with global citizen is that you start to use travel as a lifestyle as well. So it become integrate into your day to day. It's not just a one-off trip here and there anymore, or even sometimes relocation. It becomes integral into your own lifestyle, right? So that every trip becomes the best trip yet because it start elevating both your personal life and your professional life as well. Every trip become purposeful that aligns to the core of your deepest value of who you truly are and who you want to become, right? The better version of yourself that you are crafting as well. So this lifestyle becomes so powerful because travel become a powerful tool again to self-development, again to modern enlightenment, right? And from a personal growth perspective, this is where you go from intellectual to become intuitive as well, right? Because now you are opening the doors to the world of opportunity that has over to you that may not exist in our brain yet, right? That may
Right.
not exist in our intellectual plan, that may not exist in our strategy, but we as human beings, we have all experienced this, right? To allow ourselves to surrender to what the life, the world experience could offer us. right? Sometimes a random conversation at a cafe, in an overseas trip really open up the door, right? And in fact, like there's another example I always love sharing, how Starbucks is born, right? It's the founder, he traveled. He start realizing if I want to have a cup of coffee and I want to have a place where I feel like I can talk to people, right? That would be so different than just getting a cup of coffee. And then guess what? He turned the idea when he back to the States, right? He turned the idea into real
Right.
life. And that's why Starbucks became one of the most, popular coffee chain in the world because it created an atmosphere for people to connect, right? And
Mm.
that's the intuitive part of personal growth as well. Because if we allow ourselves to become mindful in our travel experience, we allow ourselves to be present through that experience. Now we are opening up the doorway to this world of opportunity that has to offer, that may sparks our next level of creativity, that may sparks another level of meaningful connection with more other travelers as well. So yeah, so this is the 4 stages of travelers that I love to share, and I hope that give all the audience a really clear roadmap of where they are as well, because it doesn't matter, where you're starting out. You could be a tourist, and that's completely fine. But having a roadmap means you don't have to walk blind anymore, right? There are
Right.
tools and framework and strategy in each different level, right? And
Mm.
some people also ask me, some of my clients, they always ask me, can I just jump straight through to become a global citizen from tourist? Again, it's like kind of a shiny result thing, right? As I
Hmm.
mentioned before. And that's not to say you can't, but a teaching that I really love from the spiritual teacher Michael Backward as well, who is a big influence in my work too, is that he says you can't transcend what you haven't mastered yet, right?
Right.
You can't transcend what you haven't mastered yet. And as attempting, sometimes we just want to jump stick to become a global citizen with this amazing travel lifestyle, which a lot of digital nomad kind of do as well. It's like,
Hmm.
now I just quit my job, sell all my stuff, sell all my furniture at home. I'm just going out. I would try this, and I'm not saying you can't do it, if that's what you want. But a lot of people do it and they feel defeated. A lot of people do it and they realize, I don't want to travel anymore. They and the reason is because they try to transcend something they haven't mastered. But what if
Right.
you allow yourself just to take the next step? May that you be a tourist or explorer or adventurer. Just take the next step to see what's the next milestone you can create for yourself through travel, and just experience it. And then create the next path again. Right? You don't have to become a digital nomad. You don't have to become a global citizen right away tomorrow. Right? It's a journey. It's not
It's a
about rushing
journey.
through to go through the destination. Mhm.
Exactly, because then all of a sudden it's always then what's next, what's next, right? And it's part of the journey. And for some people, I mean, we all start out as a tourist, and even sometimes I like to be a tourist occasionally still, because it's my work is my life, which I enjoy, but I also need breaks from it as well. So I like to sometimes just kind of have that tourist, this is where I'm going to go and relax. And also too, you can be, if you want, you can be a tourist in your own country. You can be a tourist in your own
Exactly.
city and do some of those things. Like a lot of people, myself included, my home city, I used to think, like, why would anybody come here? There's nothing to do. But if you take a step back, people came from around the world to visit and see and go to the mountains and stuff. So you can start really by being a bit of a tourist in your own city and space. And by doing that, though, you'll meet other tourists. And so then you meet
Mhm.
where they're from. What are they doing in your city? And you also learn about them. So for some people who maybe aren't quite ready or just timing with work, they can't get a lot of time off, you can still start the journey even just in your own home city, towns, and areas that you don't have to go far to start and to learn more and meet people. And then when you meet people, like talk to them. I think, in a way, one of the worst things that we were taught growing up is don't talk to strangers. I talk to strangers all the
Mm.
time. Now, as kids, we need to be aware of why is that person acting strange or what is different or weird or like just that energy of not just because we don't know them we shouldn't talk. I've had so many people that I've learned so much from who have helped me in situations, traveling and just at home and with stuff that yes, talk to strangers. Strike up
Mm,
conversations, and you never know when you're present in the moment of those conversations, as you said earlier. Sometimes somebody's going to say something. It's a phrase, a word, maybe the whole conversation or just part of it that triggers something, that ignites something, or that makes you go, "Oh, maybe I should find out more about that. I wanted to look into that," or "I didn't know exactly what they meant. I want to learn more." And that can start just the whole journey, because it's never, I shouldn't say never, but it's rarely one massive thing that happens and that causes the change. Lots of times there's little things along the way. It's those stepping stones and it's little bits, but it could be one that just kind of changes the trajectory that puts you
mm,
in the right direction, or the right
yeah.
direction for now, because it's never just one direction. It might be just the right direction for now, because as we go through different stages in life, we want different things, we require different things, we like different things. And through different stages, that will change. So that direction will change as we go through different stages in life.
It's such an important insight you just drawn now. Especially I think on the point about, you can be a truth as well. Even you are living in a global citizen life. And in fact, that's the most important thing, I also teach is as I talk about, the 4 stages of travelers, because I didn't call it the 4 stages of traveling, right? Because in fact, it's not really measured by, the level of frequency of how much you travel, how many countries you have tick off, but travelers means you are a living human being, right? You have a conscious awareness. And being a global citizen means you are also integral of being a tourist, being an integral into being an explorer and adventurer. Because like you said, there are time and space that we can merely just escape, right? And I do that as well. Like in fact, I was just sharing with you, I just came back from my 2 months of travel, and I was just in Serbia, one and a
Oh,
half month ago
nice.
for the Exit Festival.
Hmm.
So I was in the middle of nowhere in a town called Novi Sad, and I was partying 5 nights with one of my mates from America, and we were just partying 5 nights in a music festival inside a fortress. I think with 20,000, no, 200,000 people. It was
Wow.
a mind-blowing experience for me. Like, and I was a tourist. I was escaping.
Yeah.
I have my global citizen perspective, but I love it. And I think that says so much when we can, because a lot of people ask, okay, now I'm a global citizen, what's next, right? Because I'm assume, some audience, if that were you, right? If you already feel like I'm a global citizen, like what's next? Well, now the what's next is being integral to integrate
Mhm.
every other level that you have experienced, because we are human beings and we are here to really experience the full spectrum of human experience, right? We are here to create a life that we can thrive in every category of life. We are here to have it all. We're not here to limit ourselves to say we can only do one thing and we can't do another. So becoming an integrative, integral global citizen means you allow yourself to honor all spectrum of human experience.
Mm.
And that's how we can grow into the best version of ourselves. Yeah. So I really love
Yeah.
that nugget as well, your job.
And I don't think there is a what's next, because I don't think we never experience everything. We never get to kind of know it all. Like even within one country, when I go on my travels, I try to visit at least 3 to 4 different areas, whether it's city, town, or just nature parts, because every country, and especially the bigger the country, there's so much more diversity. So whether you go from the north to the south or the east to the west, there's still are, the earth is different. So the landscape, nature is different. Sometimes traditions are a little bit different. Accents and
Mm,
language can also be different. Traditional foods that they eat, the weather. I mean, there's so many things. So I don't think we ever get to say as a global citizen, like, check,
mm,
I'm done that. What's next? Because there is just so much with it that that's just one thing I don't think we can be done. And it's the same with our own personal growth. That's kind of hand in hand. We're never like, I can never say, check, I'm done personal growth. I don't need to grow
mm,
anymore. I mean, I could think it, but the reality is there's always more growth. There's always more experiences. And just with where we go with health and the universe and everything else, like we're always
mm,
constantly learning new things. Like will we eventually get to Mars with SpaceX? I mean, that's all new experiences. So we're never those types of things were never really done.
Yeah. And I think the most beautiful thing with this is, it's a demonstration that there's no end to how developed we can be with human consciousness,
Mhm.
right? Because we are literally here to unlock our own human potential, right? And by
Right.
human potential, it means to really understand the limitless nature of our human essence, right?
Mhm.
And yes, we might be bound by, a physical timeline per se that we may be living in on this earth for a certain amount of years, but when it comes to this potential, it's limitless. And that's
Right.
true freedom to me. And that's why exploring the world, being a global citizen, aligns with my own deepest value as well. Because being able to see, like you said, understanding the world, with no end, like wow, like how
Mhm.
amazing is that? Like in comparison to what I shared earlier, that people told me I have to work for the same job for the rest of my life to get a promotion, to get more money,
Ugh.
get a house, get a bigger house, get a spouse, right? Like it's a completely different
It's
paradigm that
painful
we're
to
living
think
in,
about for me. It's just like, oh gosh.
right?
Yeah.
And it's so
Yes.
different. And if you, the audience who is listening, if you choose to make a conscious choice to say, this is the kind of life I want to live, then you are already halfway because you make the decision and
Mhm.
you can create a life for yourself. And in fact, allow me to share a recent travel story as well, because as you mentioned, discovering your own city as a tourist, and wow, like I just learned so much. It actually happened around like 3 weeks ago. I was just in Hong Kong, right? And as I mentioned, I'm born and raised there. And it's so funny this time around. I'm visiting Hong Kong for 3 weeks, and I haven't been back for a year. And the last year when I was back, it was a very short trip, and it was after COVID as well. So I haven't been back to Hong Kong like 3.5 years because of lockdown, and a lot of things happen,
Mhm.
in that period, right? That I'm sure a lot of you experience similarly, as a traveler. But without getting into that side of the things, but I was just back in Hong Kong rediscovering the city, and wow, it was so refreshing. Like my friend brought me to this place called the 10,000 Buddhas Monastery. And I've
Okay.
been living in Hong Kong for the rest of my life, but I never heard about that place, in the northern hill of Hong Kong. And it was
Mhm.
absolutely fantastic. It's like, you walk through the hill and there's like this two beautiful, lane of golden golden statues of monks and
Mhm.
Buddhas next to you. And when you're on the monastery, you have like this big pagoda, beautiful tower, and you can overlook the whole panoramic view of Hong Kong with the
Wow.
skyscraper at the back. And it's like, wow, I never experienced this before, and I've never saw this. And my friend, my best friend brought me there, and I was just rediscovering my own culture. And in fact, it's not just about the view, it's not just about the scenery, but also rediscovering the part of me I have yet to know, even though, I have been traveling for so long and I'm from Hong Kong. But there's always part of me that I've yet to explore. And it's so funny.
Mhm.
This is where the part, we talk about becoming intuitive as a global citizen as well, and then allowing what the travel experience had to offer you sometime, rather than planning so rigorously, so
Mhm.
rigidly, and say I have to be in this place at this timestamp before this place closes, and pack myself with attraction and schedule. Rather than doing that, you leave yourself space as well, in your calendar, and open to whatever comes in. And it was so funny because I met this volunteer, right? Like this volunteer who has been serving that monastery for 15 years. And, he it just happened he was there on that day. And he was just chit-chatting with me and my best friend, and ending up kind of talking, sharing like a half an hour lecture, or sharing, I should say, with me, because we are just so talking into about traveling and human consciousness, just
Mhm.
like this conversation in English, about personal growth and how we can become a better version of ourselves while helping others and changing the world. And somehow this person just, speak the same, discussion with me, but in Cantonese rather than in English, right? And he also shared this whole conscious evolution things in Buddhism framework as well, right? Which I
Wow.
found so refreshing, because it's like things and vocabularies and words I have never been able to use. And in fact, now I can't even recall what exact Cantonese word he used. But it just
Mhm.
resonates in a deep level, because that's exactly sometimes what I share on stage what I share at a podcast interview as well, what I share with my coaching client. But then, wow, like listening it from a completely different perspective, from a culture that, I born and raised with, but with vocabularies I've never explored. And it was such a beautiful travel experience, at that monastery. I still doing, I did a lot of journaling after that experience and sharing that with my friends. But, I think it's also a demonstration. It's about, okay, you can live a global citizen life, but there's no end to exploring the world and discovering cultures. And there's always time and space for you to become a tourist or an explorer again, right? To go back to your own culture in your own city to be a tourist and just discovering things that you have yet to see. So yeah, it's truly, truly powerful. I've learned and grown so much from that.
That's great. And so, Freeman, if people wanted to find out where you're speaking, follow you on social media, where can they go to get more information about you and to be in touch with you and to work with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm pretty active on Instagram. My handle is Freeman Fung Official. So feel free, after this podcast, after this beautiful interview, after this amazing conversation, feel free to just send us a voice notes. What's the one biggest takeaway you have? And even if you have questions about your own path, because we're also different, feel free to reach out, and I'm more than happy to help. And for those people, who are, interested with what we have just discussed about the four stages of travelers, and you aspire to, want to take the step to take the next step, to become a global citizen eventually, then I invite you to also check out my online course as well, called the Travel Mastery Blueprint. So it's a step-by-step roadmap, a guide where I help you to create your own blueprint from the inside out, so that you get to know what is the easiest and fastest way for you to create this global lifestyle for yourself. And I believe we have spoke about this before, right? And for those audience, because of you showing up for this beautiful podcast with Sally, so I'm offering also a discount just for the listener. I believe the discount code my team set up is
I do
Global
have a I
Citizen
have a
Life.
code, so
Yeah,
yeah,
so
it'll
it'll be
be
in the
in
footnote. Yeah,
the show notes for people, and
perfect.
same with all your links. So don't everybody don't have to worry about that. The definitely will be in the show notes for everyone.
Perfect. Yeah. So that will be a code just for Global Citizen Life podcast listener. If you were to take a step to create your own blueprint as well, to really get deep into your own mastery to create this global lifestyle for yourself. So yeah, like really, really looking forward to connect with all of you. And thank you for having me today again, Sally. This is such a beautiful space. I love your work and I love your messages as well. And I believe we need more global citizens out in the world to be a conscious human being, to be able to create a life of freedom themselves too.
Absolutely. And I want to say thank you very much for joining us today and sharing your journey and for letting people know like when there's a will, there's a way, and it starts with mindset, and there's many ways. There's not just one way to be a global citizen. So thank you very much.